Is Timberwolves' comeback the best ever in NBA history? In a brief period of time in the second quarter, the Timberwolves were behind 22 points. Not only did they recover, but in the fourth quarter, they had a 22-point advantage. Social media is filled with a lot of love for Timberwolves. Why is everyone hailing Timberwolves' comeback as the best ever? With their 118-100 victory over the Los Angeles Clippers, the Minnesota Timberwolves created some NBA history. In a brief period of time in the second quarter, the Timberwolves were behind 22 points. Not only did they recover, but in the fourth quarter, they had a 22-point advantage. Minnesota came back into the game down only 63-55 at the intermission after closing the first half on a 22 surge. They had a 40-point comeback the remainder of the game after trailing 57-35 with 5:07 remaining in the first half. Following the Timberwolves' victory to improve to 45-21 and move back within a half game of the top spot in the West, an amazing statistic went viral on social media. There have been 5,500 occasions in the regular season and playoffs when a road team has been behind by 22 points or more during the 2000-1 NBA season. The Timberwolves are the first squad in NBA history to overturn the deficit and take a 22-point lead on their own. This seemed to be a statement game to us. We had lost 22. Timberwolves guard Anthony Edwards said following the victory, "I think my team came out that second half and put on a show, regardless of who they lose." Edwards finished with 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, and 37 points. He was alluding to Kawhi Leonard, who finished the game in the second quarter with an injury and finished with 6 points in 12 minutes. Mike Conley Jr. scored 23 points as well, making 9 of 15 field goals and 5 of 8 free throws. Coming off the bench, Nickeil Alexander-Walker scored 28 points, making 5 of his 6 three-point attempts. Since 2012, this is the Timberwolves' greatest comeback victory. They defeat the Clippers in the season series and establish a buffer for a top 4 Western seed. They also managed to avoid going on their first 3-game losing run of the year. Due to their shorter tenure in the league and lower winning percentage, the Minnesota Timberwolves may have one of the weakest histories in the entire NBA. But some of their players who played for Timberwolves have created a lot of influence in the team. NBA heavyweights declared Minnesota will enter the league in 1987. Although decades have gone by since then, most teams entered the league somewhat sooner in prior seasons. The Timberwolves have a small number of names that have come to represent their team, although fewer than most teams. One problem for Minnesota is that most of their finest players have at some point desired to leave via trades or free agency. An actual human highlight reel is Zach LaVine. Because of his spectacular playing style, he became a fan favorite both inside and outside of Minnesota. He won the NBA Slam Dunk Contest twice in a row, was named an NBA All-Star twice, and won the gold medal at the 2020 Summer Olympics. Despite spending just 3 seasons as a player for the Minnesota Timberwolves, he made a significant enough impression to merit a place on this list. Stephen Marbury is another extraordinary narrative of a Minnesota Timberwolves player with an exceptional background. With the future of the franchise centered around them, Minnesota selected Marbury with the intention of him becoming the second superstar behind Kevin Garnett. Marbury was just a member of the franchise for 2.5 seasons when he was traded to the New Jersey Nets. Marbury is among the top 10 Timberwolves players based on his stats and on-court performance, but the team traded him because they didn't like his attitude, and there were rumors that he was at odds with Garnett. Kevin Garnett's trade request presented the Minnesota Timberwolves with their greatest challenge to date. The Timberwolves wanted a young player and Garnett wanted to play for a contender, so they made a trade with the Boston Celtics in return for Al Jefferson. Because of his potential, some teams thought Jefferson would be a reliable all-star. Despite not being selected for an all-star team, Jefferson was a reliable player for the Minnesota club that finished last. He ranks among the top 10 franchise players thanks to an amazing 3-season average of 20 points and 10 rebounds. Karl Anthony Towns has played his whole career with the Minnesota Timberwolves and recently inked a max contract extension, so there's a chance he rises to the top of this list eventually. Being a three-time All-Star and two-time All-NBA player, Towns has validated his standing as the first overall draft choice. The sole criticism directed at Cat is that his team has not won many games and that other centers, Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic, are superior players who have won or are contenders for MVP. Towns is still among the league's finest big players and continues to produce incredible stats every season. The Minnesota Timberwolves have performed well over the last two seasons while being managed by Tim Connolly, president of basketball operations, and everyone is hailing him for his spectacular work. Will they be able to sustain it in the next seasons? Rudy Gobert, an all-star center for Utah Jazz, was willing to trade 4 first-round draft picks and 5 players for the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Timberwolves roster is still getting better, despite the fact that many have voiced more than mild dissatisfaction with the value placed on the player. This team has made significant investments in NBA veterans who are hungry for a victory right now and whose careers have amassed a wealth of knowledge and experience that not only improves their own performance, but also helps them mentor younger players along the road. In order to achieve this goal, the Timberwolves keep adding extremely gifted but undeveloped players to their roster who will gain a lot from being trained by an NBA mentor. Wendell Moore Jr., a 6'5", 215-pound wing out of Duke, was chosen by the Minnesota Timberwolves with the 26th overall choice in the 2022 NBA Draft. Wendell Moore Jr. is an obvious improvement for the Timberwolves' defense, as was evident from this addition, which showed that the team's front management was keen to strengthen that position. In late November and early December 2023, he was given the chance to start a game and he was able to contribute significantly on the defensive end of the basketball court. While scoring points will get young players the chance to play in their early rotations, playing defense is just as important as playing offense. Regretfully, his outside shooting was not yet there, and he was benched while he focused on improving his offensive consistency in between playing more minutes as a cleanup player for the Timberwolves and a bigger role with their G League affiliate, the Iowa Wolves. When the Timberwolves need to slow down the opposition's perimeter shooters, Moore is a viable alternative, much like the more seasoned veteran wing Nickeil Alexander-Walker. The Wolves suddenly have one of the top offensive units in the NBA. Don't look away. The Wolves are heading into the All-Star break on a 7-3 run that included a noticeable boost in offensive play. Do you think Timberwolves will be able to outrun other teams and win the title this season? Do share your thoughts on this in the comments section. For more interesting stories and updates like this, subscribe to our channel and do not forget to press the bell icon for notifications. Goodbye!